I did want to apologize tonight. We're having a problem with the projection system, and so there'll be a couple presentations tonight. We will not be able to project on the screen behind me. If you have a cell phone or something else, you can log in to the Wi-Fi. Princeton hotspot works well in this room, and you can look on the under agendas. You can see all the materials, and I think there might be some additional printouts in the back. And we'll do our best to make sure that we're explaining what we're talking about as clearly as possible. But we apologize for that, and hopefully it'll be fixed before the next meeting. We'll start tonight with announcements. And so am I right with the Saturday announcements? Mr. Liverman?
No really announcements. Just to say that this week I was invited to speak at Stewart Country Day School to some pretty bright young ladies in regard to issues like rentals, in regard to issues like fair housing, and in regard to issues like the empty stores, according to them, in and around Princeton area, like the shopping center and Palmer Square, and why are they empty, and what can the town do to bring people there, and so forth. So it was very interesting. So I just want to share that they think that we're doing a great job here on council, and they love the mayor, and I'm just bringing back what I heard.
Councilman Miller?
Councilman Quinn, the mayor, and I had the honor of cutting the ribbon at the municipal solar array on River Road, which is now fully operational, up and operating, providing about 3 megawatts and about 25 to 28% of the peak electricity demands of the Stony Brook Regional Sewage Authority. It didn't take a village to build a solar array, but it took a dedicated group of elected officials over a long period of time to stand behind the project and make it possible. And I would like to say thank you to the present council and to, going way back, members of the former borough council and township committee who supported this and helped to make it possible.
Thank you. And I want to thank Councilman Miller, because this would not have happened without Bernie. Council President Crummeller?
The only thing I would say is that by the next time we meet on November 13th, the election will have taken place, so I would encourage everybody to get out and vote on November 7th.
I would just point out that I had the pleasure of being joined by Council President Crummeller and Mayor Lempert at the dedication ceremony for the new piece of fire equipment, which was the 14th of October. And I was unaware of the tradition of pushing the apparatus into the bay. So it was a really nice event, and reminded us how lucky we are to have a volunteer force that is dedicated to our safety and to realizing tax savings by not having a paid force. And the university is a big part of that. I noticed that a friend of mine who works at the university recently completed her training to become a firefighter for us, to give us daytime coverage. So it's a great event, and Mayor Lempert got the best shot of the champagne carafe being smashed over the truck. So thank you.
And we now have two beautiful new trucks. They both have big. One of them has the basket that goes way up, so you can better fight fires, and the other one has the ladder that goes up. I forget what they're called.
Thank you for the technical description. I have two announcements. The first is, as council knows, we've started our goal-setting process for 2018. We had a meeting last week with the chairs of our commissions having to do with social services, and we're having a second meeting with chairs tomorrow morning that related to planning and transportation and the environment. So it's just a reminder to all my colleagues that I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And the meeting is open to the public, so anybody who's interested is welcome to come. And also, this Friday, I'll be holding my monthly Meet the Mayor session in the lobby of the Princeton Public Library, and that goes from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. And anybody who has an issue or anything else they'd like to talk to me about is welcome to come to that. Are there any staff announcements? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We have several sets of minutes. We'll start with the closed session for July 24th, 2017, and the regular, the minutes for the regular meeting for July 24th, 2017.
I'll move them, but I do have a quick question.
Okay.
Dolores, there's a line through one of the resolutions. Does that mean it was withdrawn? Yeah.
That's what was
Number
there.
9, there's a line through it. That just means it was drawn. Okay. I'll move July 24th.
Okay.
Second.
So it's been moved by Ms. Butler and seconded by Ms. Howard. All in favor of those two sets?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those pass unanimously. Next we come to August 16th, 2017. Any comments or corrections on these?
I have it's not quite a correction. I believe that the minutes are correct in stating that Mr. Hillier stated that he sold the building in March, and that is what he said. However, the deed shows that he actually sold the building on August 8th, 2016. So that was almost a year from the meeting. So I think that he misspoke, and I don't know how we make note of that. I think it's important for the public record if someone at some future date is interested in pursuing this and looking back to find out information about this. Can we include that? I mean, we can't change the minutes. The minutes are a reflection of what happened at that time. Is there any way you can, is there such a thing as an addendum where you say that that's actually not correct factually?
That I don't know, but certainly your correction of the record taking place tonight would be reflected in tonight's meeting.
Right. Unfortunately, you know, it is misleading for the public record because I'm recalling when Jenny and I went back in the old borough and sat on the floor going through boxes of minutes from 1984 trying to understand that contract. And you know, somebody that goes and looks at that may act on that information, and it's just simply not accurate. So I guess if there's no way to add that to those minutes or
I'll
add
look
as an
into-
addendum, I
I'll
would
look
certainly
into
like
whether
it
there's-
noted tonight
Yes.
that that information was incorrect.
Yes.
Should we, if we pass it tonight, can we go back and add an asterisk or
Yeah,
whatever the
I'll
process
look
is?
into, you know, whether there's something you could do with
Whether there's a remedy.
those specific minutes, but in the meantime, this will also be reflected in tonight's
Okay.
meeting minutes. So at least it's getting in the record somewhere, and then I'll work with the clerk to see
Right,
what else.
and
we
if
can
you
do.
need, I mean, I can show you, I think we've got a copy of the deed, and it's dated August 8th, 2016, 2084. Yeah.
Well, would that be appropriate to just append that deed to the minutes or not?
I'll look into it.
Okay, great. All right. So was that a motion, Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
So it's been moved by Ms. Butler, seconded by Ms. Howard. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining because I was absent.
Okay. So the minutes for August 16th were passed, and next we come to August 21st, 2017. Any comments or corrections on these minutes? Moved by Mr. Miller. Is there seconded by Mr. Liverman? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes pass unanimously. And next we come to the minutes for September 11th, 2017. Any corrections or comments on these minutes? Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Ms. Howard and seconded by Mr. Liverman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those pass also.
Wait,
Oh,
Jenny was
I was
absent.
absent.
You were
Oh,
absent.
okay.
Abstain, I was absent.
okay.
Can I ask one quick question about, from those minutes? That had to do with the traffic, with the parking report. And at that time, we thought that we would have a draft. We were talking about having it on the October 4th date, and there was some question about whether we would have a draft a couple of weeks ahead of time. I know that we've got that now scheduled for the end of November, I think, the parking meeting. Are we going to get a draft 2 weeks prior or something?
Yes, the consultant is looking to have that draft to us the first week of November.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. And now we come to a special part of our meeting where we recognize individuals and organizations who've gone above and beyond to make Princeton the special community that it is. We have 2 awards tonight, actually. So I'll start with one set of honorees tonight, which is Joanne and Dean from Jazam's Toy Store. And as so many of you know, Jazam's, it's like out of a storybook. It's this magical place, and it's one of the places that gives Princeton such a wonderful sense of place. And Joanne and Dean are also people who can always be counted on to collaborate with so many other municipal partners. They've been great with this year's Parklet. If you haven't seen it, I encourage everybody to stop by. It's really a wonderful example of collaboration with a lot of creativity. The university, Jazam's, the Arts Council. They've been a willing partner with the Arts Council on so many great events for the town. The Pop-In Space next door, the Halloween parade. I know they do the summer block party. They partner with the library on the Children's Book Festival, and just incredible generosity. And they also have just shown a total commitment to supporting local business, not just for themselves, but for the other local businesses in town. And there's not too many people still who have everything I will buy locally. And just to be the living example of that and how to do it with such spirit is really wonderful. And I always love talking with them because they remind me about the important things in life, which is to remember to have fun and to play and to find joy. And I think we all need to be reminded of that. And Jazam's is a place where whenever you walk in there, you feel like a little kid. So for all of those reasons, thank you, Jazam's. And come on up. And Ms. Butler, do you want to give out the next award?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by introducing representatives of the Y and the Breast Cancer Resource Center. They're fortunately seated in the front row. Dr. Cheryl Rendelman, Judy Hutton, and also Margaret Coppola. Right, thank you. Thanks to the large pink bows around town, it should not have gone out unnoticed that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm delighted on behalf of Council that we are acknowledging the important contribution of the Breast Cancer Resource Center to so many people in our community. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. We're so fortunate to have the leading breast cancer support facility in the area located in our town doing their good work. The unique and comprehensive approach to breast cancer support includes fitness and wellness, information, and outreach education has had a positive impact on thousands of women over the years. They offer support groups, fitness and wellness classes, a wig and prosthesis boutique, head shaving and empowerment programs, private counseling, transportation and companion program, guest speakers, and patient assistance, and a patient assistance fund designed to help patient survivors manage the emotional and physical aspects of the breast cancer journey. I want to mention just a few statistics to drive home the important work and the lives they touch. The transportation program recorded over 11,000 treatment miles. The wellness program had 128 participants. I guess you fitted 187 wigs and prosthesis. There were 132 support group participants. They shaved 11 women's heads, and they distributed 3,500 informational packets. I think it's important to note that the doors are open to anyone diagnosed with breast cancer. It doesn't matter where you call home. You serve the greater Princeton region. They're not bound by geography. However, like all good nonprofits, they are bound by finances. And so raising the awareness about breast cancer in October also means calling attention to opportunities to make a difference for this organization. If you or someone you know has been touched by a breast cancer diagnosis, I encourage you to visit the website and do your part to help this great organization. And in the meantime, on behalf of Mayor and Council, take your cake.
Okay. Thank you so much. And the pink is such an awareness for us that breast cancer exists. We're going to be around until there's a cure, and until that time, everyone is welcome to come to the Breast Cancer Resource Center. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. All right, now we come to part of our agenda where we have comments from the public for items that are not already on the agenda. So I wanted to, even though this is on the agenda, I know that we have some folks here from Habitat, and I just wanted to invite you all up because I know you might not be able to stay for the whole meeting. So if you wanted to speak to the ordinance introduction tonight.
Hi, my name's Lori Leonard. I'm the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Burlington County and Greater Trenton Princeton. I'm here with our Director of Construction, David Cummings, and our Family Services, Homeowner Services Director, Ashley Griffith. And we are here to just let the council know and the township, the townspeople know how excited we are to be moving forward with this project that was originally started with the Trenton area habitat. And since we merged, we are now taking it over. And we, in conjunction with the council, have developed what we believe to be a great model for a duplex that will be at 31 Lytle Street, trying to fit everything in that everybody wants and doing the best job that we can with that. So we're really excited. We're looking forward to it, and we are going to hang around if there are any questions or comments that we need to respond to from anybody. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to anything that's not already on the agenda? Come on up, please, and come to the mic. And if you can remember to state your name, and we also have a sign-up sheet on the table, so when you're done, if you can come sign your name, and then that just gets corrected in the minutes.
I've never been to a council meeting, and I didn't see this on the council agenda. My name is Frances Zeitler. I live at 50 Princeton Avenue. If I'm incorrect, please correct me. I may not have missed the audience. I've been here over 50 years, first as a resident of Princeton Borough, and now a resident of the town. And I have made it over the years to get to know the names and the faces of the men and women of the police department, and also the communication service that dispatches messages. And I feel that I've always been safe in this town because I knew these people, they knew me, and they knew me. And even though my taxes are high and my children have long been out of the school system for 40 years, I feel I receive fair value for my taxes for the school system and the other services that I find that is in my town. But Princeton has a large senior community that values knowing that people who protect and care for them. And I hear that you are contemplating outsourcing the communication department of the police department that will bring in new people who do not know us, and they may not be long-term employees of the outsourcing community. I please ask you not to outsource the service if this is even in your thoughts. And I'll leave it at that. I don't know whether it is coming to be, but I go down and I use the police department to tell them that I'm closing up my house. And I have spoken with Darnell and other people who are your employees of many years, and they are worried that they will be losing their job, and I'm worried they will be losing their jobs.
Thank you for your comments.
And you
Do
want
you
me-
mind just coming up to the table, and there's a sheet right there, if you can just, we can make sure we get your name and address right. Yeah, it's likely going to be on our next agenda for November 13th, but we appreciate your comments tonight if you're not able to come to the next council meeting, but you're welcome to come back also on November 13th. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to something not already on the agenda? Please come up to the microphone.
Good evening. My name's Betty Wolf, and I live at 50 Hawthorne Avenue. But I'm here tonight representing Princeton Community Housing, and I'd like to thank you in advance for item 10 on your consent agenda, which announces your support for the proposal to build a thriving New Jersey. And thank you for joining about 30 other communities and counties who've already supported this, and countless of organizations such as Princeton Community Housing, because we know that for the past 10 years or so, the state budget has been decreasing to the point of eliminating a lot of the funding for affordable housing. And while meanwhile the state has formally reasserted its recognition of the need for affordable housing, we all certainly feel that it's high time that the budget reflected the importance of this item for the state, so that people who work and live here in New Jersey can afford to do that. Sadly, we're among the top of the states with foreclosures and for homeowners, for high rentals, and also for some of us, we're dealing with millennials who live with their parents longer than they do in less expensive states for housing. So again, thank you for your partnership tonight and in the past and future.
Okay, thank you. Betty, can you come and sign the sheet? Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? You don't have to wait you can just come on up too.
Good evening. Oh, whoops. Linda Auerbach. I wanted to bring to your attention, in the past I would normally call someone else about this, but I think it should be addressed urgently. I was at the library yesterday. I wanted to speak on two things quickly. At the library yesterday, came out to use the traffic signal on the northeast corner, I think it is, of Witherspoon and Wiggins Street. The cross street, whatever, is Paul Robeson Place. And it functions perfectly, the signal itself. The problem is the ramp that slopes down when one is crossing from one side of Witherspoon to the other is in pretty bad repair. I tripped on it, got my heel caught in it, and given the speed with which people are coming out of Paul Robeson Place, 30, 35 miles an hour sometimes, even though the stated speed limit is 15 miles per hour, I believe, within the vicinity of that intersection, anyone who isn't aware of that disrepair can fall literally into traffic. and it's right next to the box that has the traffic signal apparatus in it. And someone needs to fix it soon. Also, you have school children crossing there who aren't terribly mindful of looking down when they're walking. Any one of them could go flying into that. And even when you're crossing during the signal, you've got cars speeding around, like trying to push you out of the way when you're crossing legally. So it needs to be addressed. The other thing I wanted to ask was, are you going to have questions from the public when the freebie issue is discussed?
Yes, we will.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And Mr. Shield, can you make sure that that ramp gets looked at? Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to anything that's not already on the agenda? All right, seeing no one, I'll close public comment, and we'll move on to reports. And first report is on the freebie.
Yeah.
So
So
turn over to Council President Cornwell.
right, I'm speaking as the liaison to the Public Transit Advisory Committee, and as you know, we came July 24th. To the council, and we presented ridership numbers that we all, I think, agreed supported a decision to reduce the number of trips to the Dinky station. So this is actually a second meeting where we've now tweaked the schedule. In fact, during the last week, our consultant tweaked it even further. And that might happen. So I'm not going to talk about the actual details of the schedule, but know that people are looking at it carefully. And if anyone's interested in what tweaks we made exactly, let me know, and I can tell you. But it's kind of boring to go into to say it right, to talk about the tweaks. But I have a little synopsis of them. They just have to do with giving a little more time to get on the Dinky, to get off the freebie and get on the Dinky for the times when we do service the Dinky. So I thought I would kind of recap that decision just for people who are here who weren't here in July. The ridership on the commuter route has been declining for several years. At the same time, ridership on the neighborhood route, which is the daytime route that we're expanding, has been steadily increasing. The first one or two trips on the neighborhood route in the morning have been close to overcapacity several times, or at times. Requests have been made for the neighborhood route to be extended into the evening hours. So we are seeing a demand for an expanded service. So to address the needs of the people living and working in the community, that we're combining the two services, and in this way. We're reducing the number of morning trips to the Dinky station to 3 loops, and those are the loops with the historically highest number of riders. We're going to be serving the stops in the vicinity of Reading Circle and Princeton Community Housing early in the morning so that those people can go to Princeton Shopping Center and the downtown. There is a strong demand for people who are working in those places, who work in the shopping center and the downtown. We're extending the service neighborhood stops to the early evening, and the two routes in the evening that will go to the Dinky station, and so we aren't losing all the Dinky station service. The overall service is going to operate from 6 a.m. to about 8:15 p.m. So that kind of recaps what we're doing. One thing that the committee did not agree on, and so they asked for council to weigh in on, was whether we should have one mid-morning stop at the Dinky station so that the neighborhood service, the people who are serviced by the neighborhood loop, could go to the Dinky station one time during the day. There are several reasons for that. There may be people who want to take the freebie and go to New York or to that area, but a drawback to that is that including the one stop adds 10 minutes to that one loop. So the loop that we're talking about doing, the new schedule, takes 70 minutes. So all of the routes during the day take 70 minutes, except that one would take 80 minutes. So that's a longer trip. So that's one of the downsides. There might be other arguments about it, and maybe we'll hear from people when we open it up. So are there any other questions from the council about it?
So I just want to clarify, so you're asking for guidance from council as to whether there should be this midday dinky loop or whether it should stay with a consistent 70-minute loop that hits all of the places that the neighborhood line has
That's
been going.
right. So, I mean, we've already decided, I mean, at the last meeting, everyone felt pretty strongly that we should make those changes that we anticipate will increase ridership, but we didn't discuss this. I believe at the last minute we were presented with a schedule that included this loop, but since then, some people were talking about the drawbacks, and our consultant has reservations about doing it also, so I thought I would pass that on.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? And then I was going to open it up for anybody else who'd like to speak on it from the public.
Well, I mean, has there been any resistance or from the public or any help?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So we did a survey
Yeah.
of the riders. We didn't ask them this particular question, but we did do a survey of existing riders, and most people wanted more service.
Okay.
That's what the issue for
Okay.
them was, just in general. And since July, we've had a few. We all, I think, have gotten a few emails about it from people who are, actually, I'm not sure if I've gotten any. But I forgot that maybe I should ask, our chair of our committee is here, Faye Ryder, and would you like to say anything, or did I cover everything?
You have to talk.
You have to
If
come up to
you
the
want to add
microphone.
something, you need to come to the mic.
Jenny, while Faye's coming up, can I ask, what's ridership like in mid-morning routes to the Dinky now?
You mean how many people are on
Yeah.
I have that do you know how many people? I know that in the morning and on the Dinky loop, it's like 1 or 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the neighborhood route, at some point, it could be as high as 20.
Okay.
That's the highest. I don't want to overrepresent that it's more than that.
Well, we're going to hear from Ms. Ryder first, and then we'll have you come up after.
In terms of the results of the survey, I think the main thing is that people wanted it earlier in the morning and later in the day. However, the idea of a mid-morning run would be an experiment to see if, there were other people in the community that were interested in getting to the Dinky. So that was the main reason, and it would be difficult to determine without trying it whether or not there's a market for that. But it was sort of a compromise in between, because currently we only offer rides to the Dinky for commuters that are commuting to the Dinky to go to work in most cases. But there are many other reasons to take the Dinky, and now we have a whole art center in that community. We have McCarter Theater, we have restaurants, so it's an experimental idea.
Couple
Mr. Miller?
of questions for you. First of all, how will you publicize the change schedule? And the present schedule's been in effect for some time, and people got accustomed to it. How are you going to make people aware of the fact that there are schedule changes?
We are going to have a flyer that's going to go out to everyone on the bus, that takes the bus currently, and we're going to put it on our website, and we'll probably write a letter to the editor about it. Do you know what the other plan, if we have other?
Bus shelter, we could post it at
And
bus
posting it-
shelters, the library. We could put it in the newspaper.
And there's also going to be the Go Princeton campaign, which should hopefully
Right.
help with publication.
Second part of my question, what progress is being made about having electronic information at the bus stops indicating when the next bus is expected?
Well, we do have that now. We just have, it's just been put online. So if you have the app, you can download it. It's called Transloc with a C at the end, TRANSLOC, and then Rider. It's called the Rider app. And it shows where the bus is, and you can look at that on your smartphone and see where the bus is. We don't have what you're talking about, like it's at the New York subway that says the train is going to be here in 5 minutes. That, we don't have that yet. I don't think there is a plan for that. I think it's out of our price range, especially given the number of riders we have on this.
Anybody else before we open it up for public comment? Okay. So I'd like to, can I just get a show of hands of how many people want to speak to this? Okay. So I would just ask that everybody who wants to speak come up and line up behind the microphone, and we'll put can you just pull that green folder off the sign-up sheet? And then there should be a second sign-up sheet underneath there just to keep things, perfect. So after you're done, when you speak, just state your name, even if we know you've already, if you could state your name and address for the record, and then if you can sign the sheet after you speak. But if we could just have everybody who wants to speak should line up, just so that we know how many people still want to speak would be helpful. And if Kip, you want to start, that'd be great.
I have a handout too.
Okay.
Mayor, if, at some point we're going to need to say everybody in line gets to speak, but we're going to have to cut off. So if people don't line up, we won't know. People won't be able to speak, I think, is the problem. So maybe only 2 people want to speak? Okay.
My name is Kip Cherry. I'm at 24 Dempsey Avenue. The freebie has long been an underutilized resource. Many potential users have not understood how they could use it, misunderstood its true schedules and its routes, and found that the commuter service failed to efficiently connect with the dinky and critical New Jersey Transit commuter trains. The new schedule reduces the number of commuter express runs in the morning from 6 to 3. But at the same time, the remaining 3 runs have better schedules that hopefully will ensure that commuters get to the critical trains heading into New York on a timely basis. Namely the 6:31 a.m., the 6:35, and the 7:05 express trains to New York. Those of us who see a major opportunity here hope that commuters on any of these trains will pay particular attention to the new proposed freebie schedule and how the freebie links to the dinky and express trains for Manhattan. We also hope that the new schedules can contain a highlighted box that shows how the freebie connects to the dinky and then connects to New York City trains in the early morning. And that's what I just handed out to you. So this would be an additional matrix to be embedded in the schedule, an informational matrix that lays out the whole commuter route. The schedule matrix that I just handed out might work well if it's inserted at the bottom of the freebie schedule. With this clear illustration, we are hoping that some commuters to New York who haven't tried the freebie will give the freebie dinky connection a chance. We should ask at the same time that the professional schedulers working on the new freebie schedule take one more look at the transfer times. We note that the transfer times for 2 of the routes are greater than necessary and would be better shortened by a few minutes. At the same time, the 3rd route is short by 2 to 3 minutes at the freebie dinky interface. And you can see that in that little matrix I just handed out. That's the 7 o'clock freebie. And it arrives at 7:14, and then the dinky takes off at 7:16. And unless you're Hercules, you can't make the dinky.
That's been improved in the latest iteration of the schedule, by the way, thanks to your input.
Okay, I just want to make sure because there have been several different iterations. Also on the matinee freebie, we've been calling it the matinee freebie, that is included in the September 20th version and not in the October 10th version of the schedule. We think the matinee freebie is a good idea for people going into New York for a matinee or for lunch or for an afternoon meeting. There are some transfer timing issues again with that, but we would hope these could be worked out. So we think that a real effort should be made to try to get this freebie, the matinee freebie, to work. Give it a try. And regarding Saturday service, which was eliminated from the October 10th version, we feel that Saturday service is very important for both townspeople and students, and we'd like to see the Saturday service continued as is shown in the September 20th schedule. It needs a little reworking to make it work because the way it's scheduled right now, as soon as you get into New York, you have to turn around and head back to Princeton, so obviously it needs a little tweak there. But we all think that there's a market for the Saturday schedule, and if you have a freebie, people will come, and if you don't, they will never get that opportunity going. And so we think it's very important to have the Saturday schedule. And lastly, just in terms of rail transit overall, I just want to mention that eventually the American Cyanamid site will be developed. We all know that's a huge site on Route 1, and it's going to cause a lot of traffic. And a lot of the intersections to cross Route 1 will probably be cut off. So the rail is all the more precious because it's the railroad that crosses without any hindrance. And so I think that rail has a great future, and I just want you to keep that in mind when you think about the freebie and how it feeds into the dinky. Thank you.
Thank you. Kip, can you come sign the sheet up front at the table?
Can I ask a quick question? You kept saying, we think. Are you representing somebody?
I'm representing everybody who's interested in maintaining the dinky, basically.
You can hold it too if you want. It's fine.
Hi, my name's Molly Sullivan. I think I've spoken to you, Mayor Lempert, and Jenny as well. You answered my emails, and I know, Mayor, you called me back personally, and again, thank you for that. I really appreciated that. As I stated to you earlier, I think the dinky is the best kept secret in Princeton, especially for any commuters to New York City. I started working in Princeton in June 2015, and I moved here in March of 2016, and I didn't fully understand what the freebie was even about and that I could use it until late June of this year. And it's been a fantastic service. And no, I don't have numbers on it, but based on my own experience of talking to Princeton residents who've been here for years, and no one ever mentioned, and they knew that I preferred to walk and everything in the city I live or in the town I live in the borough. No one ever said, oh, well, Molly, you should really check out the freebie, and I would ask about it at the library and stores because I was curious. And I always got the response, I think it serves the public. I'm not really sure of the schedule, just very vague answers. Once I realized what it does for the town, as it's been mentioned before, a university town with lots of traffic, lots of people speeding through towns, as the woman mentioned before. This is such a fabulous service, and I can't believe more people, don't use it. It'll very attractive for the people living here, and for the people visiting. Less traffic is great. You'll attract more people. It's good for the economy. But back to the commuting schedule. Basically, what I don't understand is there's this proposal to change the schedule that would decrease, mainly, I know, as a commuter, decrease the commuting times. And I just don't understand how this is a proposed change based on data for something that isn't marketed. And I think it's great that you're going to be doing a marketing campaign. It just seems very backwards. Why don't you first do the marketing campaign, give it a few months at least, and then collect the data. That's your real data. And then you can make an accurate decision. It just seems like, of course I'm biased. This is a great service that I benefit from. But I think the town will really lose out on so much, and it'll be really, quite frankly, a stupid decision. So that's my main thing. Please reconsider this and follow, in my opinion, more logical steps. First you market, then you collect data, then you make a proposal, or you put out a proposal. So that's the biggest thing. And then specifically on the most recent schedule I've seen, I know you mentioned there's a more updated one. The morning times are still pretty decent, but the commuting times in the evening, it seems like they're not even addressing the main commuter time. Most people, if they're working normal hours, they'll probably from New York City, they'll probably catch a 5:21 or a 5:45 express train back to Princeton. And so they'll be arriving at the Dinky station between 6:30 and 7. And first of all, the proposed schedule is hard to read, but based on my understanding is that there won't even be a Dinky service offered. I think the first Dinky service is at 6:15 or so, and the next one isn't until 7:45. So you're not even addressing, it's not really even a commuter schedule. It's not addressing the main commuter time of between 6:30 and 7. So I think that's, a misnomer. You can't even call it a commuter schedule in the evening. So again, my main thing is, it seems backwards. Please market it correctly, and then collect accurate data, and then put out a proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I had talked about this in the beginning, because you're absolutely right. Marketing is a really good idea, and we have, over the years since the freebie's been in existence, we've had pushes. We haven't had one in a few years, but we have marketed it and had campaigns to push for it. And so, just so everyone knows, it's not like something. We do talk about this problem of marketing, and we have in the past. I don't know if you remember.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like, so we do have a marketing campaign that's underway, that's being planned, called Go Princeton. And part of the feedback of that campaign was that we want to have a freebie schedule that works really well, or as well as we think we can make it, so that when people ride it, if we're encouraging them to ride it, you want them to have a good experience. So it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg. You don't want to market something where it's not quite working as well as it can. But this is not the first time the freebie schedule has been tweaked. So I feel like the tweaking right now is happening because of the marketing campaign. And I would encourage, we have a transit committee, I would encourage them after the Go Princeton campaign to take a look in a year or a year and a half and see what the ridership is like, and if we need another tweak. I think we've done it. So I think those are, your points are well taken, but I think we need to do both.
Right, and Liz alluded, in case people don't know about the Go Princeton campaign, that's a marketing campaign. We've actually hired a consultant to do a marketing campaign and help us with that. And it's going to include a website and also a brochure to make things simpler for people who want to make connections. And it's going to be about public transit in Princeton, and how to take the bus, how to take the bus to the train, and how the freebie can connect to New Jersey Transit buses. So we are committed to doing a good marketing for the freebie.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Ted Moss. I'll operate the freebie. I have some sheets here that I would like to pass out to your committee, your council. I've been operating the freebie for the last 6 years. I've seen it grown from 35 in the midday up to 130.
And wait, do you drive during the day?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. But I think you're making a big mistake on the first run of the Dinky at night. The 525, that shouldn't be cut out. Reading Circle is the #1 pickup on the freebie, okay? You are guaranteed anything between 4 and 20 people on that first stop, the 10:08. Okay, you're guaranteed that. Now that gets me to the first run of the Dinky at night. The first run of the Dinky at night, you are guaranteed 4 to 12 people. The sheets that I just passed out will back up exactly what I'm talking about. You have the second run also on the Dinky at night is very important. And like Molly was saying, the third should be skipped. The fourth is important. those 3, if you're going to cut it from 6 to 3, those are the 3 that you keep. You don't cut 1, you don't cut 2, and you definitely don't cut 4. But number 1, that first, the 525, is the most heavily rode freebie. For some reason, it's the most. And also, I wanted to talk about on this new proposed schedule here, all right, there's no break between the day shift and the night guy. All right? There's always been a break in between the two. One, you have to pre-inspect the bus, inside of the bus, outside of the bus. I'm not going to take over a vehicle for someone and I don't know what shape the vehicle is in. Okay, if there's been some dings, some fender benders, I got to know this for myself. And there should be a break. And the second reason why it should be a break is because of the fact that what happens if the guy on nights call off? You think that guy on day shift is going to run the whole day and night? So it should be a break in between the two. Now, there is substitutions, all right, but there is times in which you can't get a substitute to come in. And for a person to drive constantly in Princeton for 13 or 14 hours, that's kind of ludicrous. All right, so I think there should be a break in between the two shifts. Even down at the bottom where it says that you want to finish at 8:12, why don't you finish at 8:42 instead of 8:12? That way you'd have your 30-minute break, and that's basically what time you finished on the old schedule anyway. Also, there's a few other things I like to talk about. You're talking about eliminating the commuter. Well, what about cutting back on stops where people don't go? Okay, if you're going to do that for the commuter, you got to do that for the midday too. Because there's stops in there that people just don't go. In a course of 2 weeks, which is 120 stops, I had 25 people going to the senior center. I'm not saying cut it out completely, but what I am saying, it should be cut back because it doesn't make sense. And to go into the senior center at 3:20 in the afternoon and have to return there at 3:35, has anybody up here been on Elm Road between 3:15 and 4 o'clock or 206 South trying to make a left-hand turn coming out of the senior center? Those two stops there are ridiculous. If a person's going to get on at 3:20, get on at 3:20. Don't tell me to come back to pick you up at 3:35. That doesn't make sense. And the traffic is ridiculous.
I would recommend, you are a source of a lot of very important information, and I would recommend that before any more changes to the schedule, that the committee talk with you and get your feedback on the numbers that they've been looking at. And
Right.
I mean, I feel like,
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. And our, the person that manages the freebie, Joan, from Greater Mercer County TMA, Transportation Management Association, is who is the scheduler and has figured all of this out. So it's probably more efficient to talk with her and maybe the committee. So I think we can
help facilitate that meeting though, but I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like your knowledge is very important, and I think
But we're not here, I don't think the council is really equipped to tweak the schedule up here on the dais, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that what Joan did was, what she tried to do was optimize the schedule, and probably because it's just one bus going around in one loop, it might not be able to be perfect because we only have one bus at a time. But I'm not really sure of that, so we'll talk to her about that.
I got a couple other items too. Okay. The Reverend Dr. John at Trinity Church, he's a frequent rider on the freebie. And we talk quite a bit. And he said, Ted, what's your main concern about the freebie? I said, Doctor, that's easy. It's the lack of heat. So he wrote a letter to your committee, and nothing has been done, nothing has been said. He wrote this letter in July, and here it is October, and luckily it hasn't turned cold yet. We have a brand new $90,000 vehicle that has heat from the third seat forward. A person with a disability that sits in the back, there's absolutely no heat whatsoever. Now, there's an air conditioning unit that'll blow you out, along with the heat system, but the heater was never connected. I've complained about this from October of last year until now. The Reverend Dr. John sent a letter to the committee, but nothing has been done about it yet. So
Thank you for bringing that to our
We definitely
attention.
want to fix that, and maybe.
This is the first I'm hearing of it, and from
Yeah, I've never heard
Mark's
of it.
face, it's the first time he's hearing of it, so I think the message did not get through, but
Well,
we'll
I do
address
want to
that right
say
away.
it did get through to the committee, and we have discussed this, and Don has said he is looking into the matter for us. So he's.
Well, but maybe we can have Mark look
Yeah,
into it also.
But we will,
Yeah.
yes.
Because it sounds like, if there's something wrong with the bus, we should go back, and hopefully it's still under warranty and we can get it fixed.
Okay, my last thing I would like to talk about is Copperwood. Okay, we ventured into Copperwood on a trial basis for 90 days. In 90 days, you had something like 10 pickups. So they cut Copperwood loose, and they were told to come to the top of the hill shelter on Bun Drive. Since we cut Copperwood loose, there has been 4 people just rode that bus from Copperwood. So I heard at a meeting last Thursday that 10 people showed up stating just the opposite. Well, when you come out of PCV, it's a stop sign there, and I'm facing that shelter. 144% of those people coming from the village. They're not coming from Copperwood. So I just want to let everybody know what the real deal is. And that's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And also, we have had people come here, Ted, and they've said that we have one of the nicest drivers on a freebie.
I can be.
So you haven't heard it, but I just want to repeat what they've told us, just so
Yes,
you know.
in our survey,
Yes.
several of
I'm
the
telling you.
respondents
They've come here.
complimented you, and
Yes.
so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we really, sorry about the heat problem, and we're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
So I want you to sign the paper. My name is David Mickelson. I live at 281 Jefferson Road. Most mornings I see Ted because I ride the last so-called commuter freebie, but not to the Dinky. I just use that to get downtown. And then I ride the second evening so-called commuter freebie, and I don't pick it up at the Dinky either. I haven't seen well, I was sick when the 2 days of survey that was mentioned earlier was passed out on the freebie. And I don't think there was ever a notice in the last 6 months or any time that there was a major change planned, a big reduction in service. People who rode that commuter freebie didn't hear about it unless another passenger told them, or Ted told them, or the other driver, though the other drivers don't seem to be so plugged in. They're a lot newer. I think you folks didn't really get the word out.
I know we put out flyers to the riders on certain days, but probably not enough.
Yeah, I never saw one, and I ride pretty frequently. So I think it's great that you're doing something to expand service to the places that would benefit from the schedule change. And I think you probably pick up some riders. And some riders who have to wait until early morning to leave will now be able to leave at a time that works a lot better for them. But it's pretty clear you're going to lose riders too. And whether that's a net win or a net loss, I wouldn't be able to guess, and I don't think anybody on the committee really has much confidence in their ability to guess either. So I think this really isn't ready for prime time yet. I know you folks have debated on it and worked on it a long time, but I really don't think it's sorted out yet. And one idea that I proposed at the meeting last week afterward was that you think about changing the route in a larger way. A route change that I think might work well in the morning, because mainly people want to get downtown or to the Dinky. There's really not very many people already downtown who want to go home. So I think if you started all the morning routes at PCV, went to the shopping center, then followed the current morning route all the way to the Dinky, then on the way back, don't follow the current route. Just stay on 206 down to Valley Road over to Harrison, out to PCV. That'll be a lot faster. I think you might be able to do all of the morning Dinky runs and throw in PCV at the start and serve a lot of people and not lose anybody, because you're going to serve all the commuter runs, I think. I think that's worth looking at. The evening is much tougher, because you got people going in every direction, and whatever you cut out, somebody's going to lose, and I don't have any ideas about that. But I would urge the council basically to tell the committee go back and work harder on it. I really don't think it's ready to go. It really hasn't been fully assessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Anderson of 172 Nassau Street. I ride the Dinky, the freebie routinely. And I think that this new schedule, the idea of a single schedule, a single route with forks to get to the station has real promise. It especially has real promise in overcoming the major weakness here. I did not hear about this meeting or this proposal until I happened to overhear someone talking it over with Ted a few days ago. I would not be here. And I need the freebie for reasons you may conjecture. As for my particular needs, I like the last evening run. I use it despite the fact I am not going to the Dinky. Other than that, I have no specific comments or tweets. You're not the place to discuss them, save that I would prefer that continue, and I think it's very useful. I think a lot of demand for something that goes home without when the library closes is a good idea. But I do ask whether your committee or your scheduler or your scheduling group contains anyone who actually rides the freebie. I gather it doesn't.
No, it does.
Because I think as a writer, I would comment that the matinee run is largely redundant because there is a university shuttle to the Dinky at that hour, and you can transfer. I'm not sure how the schedule is, and you may want to talk with the university about getting their schedule firmer and your connection better, but I gather this has not been discussed.
No, it has. One of the reasons to not have the schedule during the day is that there are options for people who they can connect at Palmer Square either using one of the New Jersey Transit buses or the Tiger Transit.
But also you can connect to the Dinky station using the same.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
yes.
No. Oh, I see. From Palmer Square to the Dinky. Yes. I urge you to consider moving therefore the last run to roughly where it is now, or possibly even a bit later. And I urge you to consider something that Ted didn't mention in his own self-interest. I know that it is fairly routine for Ted to take either the morning commuter rides and the daytime ride, or the morning commuter ride and the evening ride, or sometimes when things utterly fall through, all three. And human beings do need to pause at some point during that. And besides any question of the boss, simply because you are dealing with a person. I think that's about it. Oh, yes. And I think that there has been very little communication to the ridership, to the town, or to anything. The schedule posted in the library, for example, is still the schedule for two years ago, which has been tweaked twice. It's still posted because nobody gave them a new one. That you need to think about this sort of thing before and post what you are now doing before you change it. You really do.
Yes. Plan to do as much publicity as we can.
Thank you.
And thank you for telling me about it's out of date.
Oh, yes, and I'm sorry. One of the advantages of the new schedule, which I do praise, is getting it all on a single sheet of paper, because that's the other thing that doesn't get done. People can get schedules for the commuter schedule. So you can get schedules for the midday schedule some month, and you can get schedules for the commuter schedule some month, and they're rarely the same month, and they're never the same piece of paper.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Li Chen. I've been taking a freebie in the morning and evening commute for more than 1 year, and I found it's the best thing in Princeton town. So I get on from shopping center and get off at shopping center. I normally take the 7:16 train from Dinky. So if you change the schedule to 7:12 arriving at Dinky, it's too tight in the morning. And also sometimes I take the bus afterwards. So if you're cutting 6 to 3 in the morning, it's not convenient. And also in the evening, I normally take either the first or the second or the third. So if you're cutting to 2, it's going to be very inconvenient. And I normally see quite a few people in the evening round, so I don't understand why cutting from 6 to 2 round. And So my commute normally takes 2 hours one way to New York. So now if you cut this freebie, my commute is going to be even longer. So it's going to be very inconvenient. So that's all.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda Auerbach, Reading Circle. Whoops, I keep doing this. I'll never be a rock star, I guess. Stay. By the way, I'm probably guilty of plagiarism. I've been Xeroxing your 4-color schedule for a number of years to give copies to people because there never seem to be any available on the free to be handed out. And I don't know whether McCaffrey's would agree to it, but the 606 and the 605 have that would be a good place because you get a lot of different people, especially putting a lot in that bus shelter. Main thing is, it happens that this morning, and Ted, I don't know whether you can tell me who the woman was. I think you said she was from the MTA? Okay. There was a woman I sat next to on the MTA this morning. I was discussing this meeting with Ted, and she chimed in and was very authoritative, and I asked her who she was, and she said that she had made, I think, this up or something else. Okay. My question, I asked her, everything would be great for people like me, living at Reading Circle. I can't go to cultural events unless I hitch a ride from people who happen to be going, because the 605 does not go out to Reading Circle on a weeknight. For example, I have to get the 9:18 to go back home. However, I'm going to be out there 20 minutes early because several of the drivers come early because they want to get a break. So I don't rely on the final bus listed for the 605 on any night. I take the second to last bus, which means I can't go to movies, the theater, anything else, speeches, whatever at Princeton, blah, blah, blah. Other people would like to go to other things. I'm very glad you're expanding a number of the routes for Monday through Friday and for Saturday. Well, Saturday, no. I'm glad to have the slightly later in the evening schedule going up to Reading Circle. Now, what I asked her about, to get to my point, is why did the 606 stop going up to Reading Circle? Because that goes later, and you don't take that dangerous walk in the dark. You're subject to assault, I hate to say it, and also careless drivers. And it's a long haul. It's a half-hour walk. Especially in the cold and the rain and the snow. Now, to go to, say, a concert at McCarter or something, to spend $16 on a cab, I mean, I can't afford that anymore. Anyway, she said that the reason the 606 was cut out, going to Reading Circle, was so that it wouldn't step on the freebie route's toes. And I wanted to find out, and I don't know the woman's name. Ted will back me up. I wasn't hallucinating. I said, well, then why would they not go out to Reading at night? The free doesn't work at night. So she may well have misinformed me, but can anyone here enlighten me? Was the 606 route cut?
I never heard that, but that's Joan Rock.
Sort of shortish
yes, that's
hair.
the person who is handling the schedule, so I'll talk to her about that.
Okay, because
that's news to me.
I've called New Jersey Transit and said, come on, you people, can you bring the 606 out to Reading Circle, please? And they say, no, it can't be done, can't be done. And I'm wondering why, because that would solve a lot of problems, although you do have to pay for it. But most of us senior citizens have a pass or can get the 1 zone or the 2 or 3 zone thing from social service agencies. Anyway, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Isabel Chu. I take the freebie every day. I mean, 5
Can you speak right into the mic?
5 times a week, morning and evening. And I am the only one on the 5:30 a.m., so I get it, Sometimes we are too. But otherwise, I've noticed that, especially when the weather is getting colder, there are more and more passengers in the evening. And it's not only the second or the third, it's later. And I was a little bit upset when I saw that there was a survey being done, and then there was the finalized, or a draft of the new schedule literally a few days after. And I'm thinking that all the the statistics were not being considered. The 5:30 or 5:25 in the evening is really popular. And so I just wanted to say that I feel so sorry that it has to be, either or, the freebie for commuters or the freebie for seniors. And I feel very happy that seniors have more opportunities to go out or what, but it's a little bit sad that it's detrimental to the commuters, because we want, sustainable Princeton, we want, less traffic. We want a lot of things, and then we don't do what could, bring that. So Ted is a wonderful driver. He's very dedicated, has all these numbers, and he can say that over the years, it's been 2 years or 3 years that I'm taking it, that there are more and more people taking it. And if there were more advertisement about it, definitely more people will take it.
Thank you.
Dozier Hammond, Lee Avenue. I want to mention that I'm a member of the Transport Committee, but I'm going to be giving my own views here, which I've given in the committee as well, but I don't want to say that this is totally reflective of the committee, though various members agree with parts of all of these things, but not all of them agree with it. I just want to say that I rode the Dinky for 19 years. It was my way to get into New York. I really enjoyed it. I did not use the freebie, but I think it's a great thing to get there. What we've been faced with, unfortunately, is just a continual decline in the commuter Dinky, freebie connection to the Dinky over the last 4 or 5 years. I agree that it has not been marketed well enough or publicized well enough, or there's not enough schedules there. But at the same time, we have to look at the neighborhood routes which have grown without any marketing or whatever, and have reached capacity, especially early in the morning, but throughout the day. And the trend has just been, what we do is we compare, and we look at this every month in our meetings. We look at what the ridership is, comparing this month, this year versus, or last month, this year, and last month, a year ago. And it's been an incredible look at it, because unfortunately, the Dinky ridership has gone down to quite often 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, rarely 5 or more in any of their routes for the commuter route. And that has gone down over time, and the trend has continued. And I think it's down at least 10 or 20% from last year. That was down from the year before. But I do think so I think that the changes that we have come up with, and there's been some interesting testimony tonight that might lead to a couple more tweaks, though it is more work for everybody again. But I just want people to know that we really have looked at these figures very closely and kept the municipal budget in mind. Because the problem is, it would be good to have both of them and expand it, and if we could do that, but if you're not being very cost effective, if you're only serving 1 to 5 people on a bus that holds 20, when other routes are getting anywhere from 10 to 20 people all the time. I do think in the future, though, we are going to have to look as a town at expanding the freebie service, and also promoting not only freebie service around town, but to the Dinky and to everywhere else. We've got to promote it now, and then in the future, we're going to have to look at more freebie service. Yes, it's going to cost more money. Yes, it might raises our taxes a little bit. We can try to go for grants and other things, but I think in the future, we do need to look at perhaps expanding freebie service beyond what we can do now with our 2 buses and drivers, because it is becoming more popular, and as traffic goes up in our town and a lot of other things, I hope we do look at that. I do think we've got to promote what we have now, encourage people to use both the ones that go to the rest around the town and the ones that go to the Dinky, and hopefully we can expand it in the future, but we are going to have to look at it as a budget item, I think, to be possibly expanded then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dodger. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak who didn't get a chance? I'll make an exception, but it's like if you have something burning that you need to say, but in general, we can't have everybody speak twice because it'll be another hour. But if you have something that you need to say, come up and say it.
I'll make it really brief. I appreciate what the gentleman just said. I think it was very fair. I just felt it was worth noting that with the day ridership going up, I imagine that that's gone up through a lot of word of mouth. And then with the commuter service, I know this isn't based on data, but I can base this on my own life experience and friends, family. Everyone with the commuter, you're just focused on getting to work. You're not about, and everyone has going different places, mainly to New York City. You're in a totally different mindset. And people, you're focused on yourself. You're not about sharing. With the daytime people, I imagine there's a lot of neighborhood people where it's just a different dynamic. So I can easily see how the ridership has gone up that way. I just think that's an important point to note.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, so I'm going to bring the discussion back to council, and I know we've heard a lot of really important points, some of which hopefully we can act on, like the heat on the bus and some other things. But there was the one question that the committee was asking our feedback on, which was that matinee run, for lack of a better term, and sounded like the committee wants council's
Right, the committee
feedback on that.
Right.
And then I feel like from everything that we've heard from the riders and from Ted, it's that I think going back and taking another close look from the feedback we got tonight, I think would be important. But does anybody have strong feelings about the matinee run?
Please.
Mr. Quinn, did you have a comment, or Ms. Butler?
I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, but I just want to clarify that we're not taking away something that's being offered right now. This is in addition to the schedule, and it adds 10 minutes to the route at that time. I don't have a strong feeling either way.
I'll just say that I think the fact that you would call it the matinee run says it all. And if someone can afford to go into New York and go see a matinee, we have limited resources, and we call it the freebie, but it's being paid for by other taxpayers. And most of what we do around here, we try to charge people. The users generally pay. If you go to the swimming pool, you pay a fee at the swimming pool. That's what we try to do all over town in everything we do, is have the people who use it pay. So this misnomer, it is sort of free to the people who are using the service, but it's not free to the overall town. And so I hope when we're thinking about expanding the service, we'll also think about the break point at which we can ask people who use the service to actually contribute toward running it. This is too much for council to absorb at this point, trying to get into the micromanaging of this schedule. I assume that the woman who made these adjustments knows what she's doing. She's a professional in the field. I assume that you looked at the data, the committee looked at the data. I'm really, if you wanted to try some experimental, I think you called it, Faye, did you use the word experimental matinee run?
Well, I didn't call it a matinee run. I
But
called it
that
a
midday
mid-morning run. That's the term that has been,
right.
used by others.
I really think that the committee's got to take, this isn't really a council decision. It's not a policy decision. We funded the freebie to a certain level. The details of the schedule aren't really a council decision.
So we could take that, if we don't have consensus up on the council, we can take that, and the council can say, no, the committee must make the decision, and the committee will. Is that what?
I mean, I do agree on that point. I don't think we want 7 elected members of the Princeton Council deciding stops and timing.
No,
That's
just,
not-
that's what.
I don't think
Jo-
that serves the public well. I'd rather leave it to experts who can hear from people. I mean, I think this was a good session to have because people should be able to report back on the value the Dinky provides to them. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done this, but I don't feel qualified to talk about which stop when.
I would say my sense, and people can disagree with me, is that in terms of the priority for the freebie, I think we want to prioritize people who are relying on it because they don't have other sources of transportation, and also people who can regularly use it because they're choosing not to drive. And to use that to inform, if you have a midday route that is sort of intended maybe for people who use it once a month, how do you factor that into people who might be using it regularly for something else? But I don't have a good sense of who's riding it in the middle of the day, and I agree, you got to take it back to the committee. But in terms of the general, what should be prioritized, I would say, at least from my perspective, I don't know if others disagree, it's like people who don't have a car or people who are regularly deciding to use transit and walk combination instead of using a car, and who would do it most days.
But if that's the case, Mayor, then we can have the committee can have a data-driven approach to doing that.
Correct.
Well, we do.
Well,
I
they
mean,
have
I want to
that.
really.
No, I know. That's what I wanted to
I mean,
time on this, Jenny.
yeah, thank you. And I do want to emphasize that to everyone here that it's a complicated optimization challenge. And it's really, a lot of it is math. I mean, basic math, that there are people in disparate locations who want to go to disparate locations, and optimizing that route and the scheduling is difficult. We're never going to be able to, I mean, there are going to be people who are going to be displaced when we help other people get there. It's just going to, those are problems. So I do want my council members to know that this has all been data. It's one thing that it is nice that we have good data about the trips and who goes when. But we don't have data about the experiment. So that's when, so the committee was struggling with that, but with the extra trip, the matinee trip.
Just to be clear, this extra trip is in response to a survey of people who said they might want to use it.
Right, right.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that the committee has done a great job.
I would have
but I
answered
just
yes,
think that,
too,
I think
and I
that
would
a
never
little more tweaking would probably help. But I think you're going in the right direction. I think we can come at a common ground. But I think that you may want to tweak a little bit due to some of the comments that I've heard tonight.
Yeah.
And not a lot.
Do you have anything?
Okay, so then where do we stand as a committee in terms of the next step? And, do we have to tweak and then come back? Or
No, I mean, I would
are
hope
you
that the
ready
council
to
would
approve
the committee will finalize the schedule. We'll have one more finalizing of the schedule, I think.
Isn't it kind of a staff decision, ultimately? I mean, I understand if the committee's in a, feels split on an issue, should it come to council, or should Mark make the decision? I think I vote for Mark.
Well, the staff has an opinion on it, so,
Well, what I would recommend is have it go back to the committee, see if you guys can come to some sort of consensus, and hopefully there's an odd number of people who come that day, and you take a vote, and you move forward one way or the other. I would say I think it is helpful to have it come back to council, not for a vote, but for just a report or a presentation, so we know when there is a new schedule, and we use the meeting to help publicize it, because I think we want to know what's going on and be able to communicate what the new schedule is. So I would definitely welcome you back for that.
Okay, well, I'm confident that the committee can make a decision about the mid-morning run. But I think overall, our goal to offer more service, expanding it, starting early in the day and later in the day, is everybody's in full agreement of that.
Yeah, I think it's exciting too. I think it's, taking a look at this, making a big change, and, I think looking at the data, seeing how we can serve more people is important. Having a single schedule is really terrific, and I think having it dovetail with the Go Princeton campaign and getting the word out is hopefully going to, it's great to see all these people. Normally when we talk about the freebie, it's like to an empty chamber. So it's just, I feel like we've made great progress in just having a big group here. And it is a really wonderful service for the town. So I want to thank the committee. And I would say for the one important tweak that we heard is that I think there needs to be a break for the bus driver.
Right. I thought the bus driver changed, so.
Yeah, but I'm not going to get into the weeds.
Everyone
but,
to
yeah.
know that we weren't being slave drivers.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll continue with reports. Ms. Howard, any reports? Mr. Lieberman?
Just want to report that the affordable housing, we've been trying to move with showing some of our affordable housing units that you can purchase, homes for purchase. And it looks like today the program is working, and we look like we have one that we'll probably have sold as of today. We've been trying to market these homes. This home has been on the market since about maybe 2 years or a year and a half, and it's just hard to find someone to buy certain homes. And these are small units like efficiencies and those size, and people with families, they really can't live in these kind of units. But we have been trying to move, and Marinas, we're doing a great job. So as of today, it looks like we have one of those units, hard units to sell, that we haven't sold.
How large is the inventory, Lance?
I can't say, usually it's around 4.
Actually, there are actually 4 units.
4 units?
And of those 4 units, 3 of them are under contract.
Under contract, yeah.
So how much
Yeah, we've been
is
moving.
the one that's, just so people know, how much is the price?
Well, it's based on their income.
Yeah.
It's based on what they can afford.
What people can afford?
Yeah. But like I said, their units were kind of tricky because they're
And
kinda
is the
small.
one a one-bedroom, or do you know, or?
Yes, this is the one. This is one like an efficiency kind of.
An
unit.
efficiency. And where
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah.
Do you know where it is?
Billy Ellis, I believe.
Greg's
Yeah.
Farm?
Yes.
I think Councilman Miller? Mr. Miller? Ms. Beller?
Actually, Mayor, this is a report that's sort of a report/announcement. The Master Plan Subcommittee of the Planning Board met on October 11th, for a work session about the circulation element of the master plan, and the community room was overflowing with people who were interested in the fact that West Drive was in the circulation element and was included in the circulation element, but in the conservation element was slated for preservation. So the full planning board will be considering the circulation element on November 2nd, and the master plan subcommittee's recommendation was to remove West Drive from the circulation element after hearing testimony from the neighbors, and also largely based on the inconsistency and on the sort of checkered history of West Drive's inclusion. So November 2nd is the full planning board discussion.
Thank you. I have a couple reports. First was probably more of an announcement, but I forgot to make it earlier, so I'll make it now. I was at the rededication of the community stage at the Arts Council. So they have a theater space up on their second floor, and they have a lot of programming that they're planning for free events, or for almost free events, they're calling them, with all different sorts of organizations in town. So you can look on the Arts Council site to see some of the programming there, and it is a really great space. I know that there always seems to be a plan someone has for having a black box theater, and we have one at the Arts Council, and they want to make it available to people. So it's a great resource. Secondly, I attended a conference in New Haven last week with Shauna Weber, who's the Princeton University director for the Office of Sustainability, and then several members of Sustainable Princeton. And it was a conference on town gown partnerships for sustainable initiatives. And there were a lot of really great communities there, like Madison was represented, and Davis, California, Providence, Minneapolis, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Birmingham, Alabama, and some interesting presentations on how those communities have partnered with their respective universities, especially in areas around transportation, stormwater management, and climate action. So I felt like for all of the sessions, very relevant for Princeton, and we came back with some interesting ideas. One of the more interesting was that the Davis campus bus program is, they use these London double-deckers, so they're like these cute buses, but they're all driven by the students. So they keep their costs
I'm not sure
low.
that's advisable.
I know, yeah. But it was, they were running into labor issues.
Not all ideas from California may be worthy of replication.
I'd never heard that before, so I thought that was pretty interesting. All right. And then yesterday, there was the 4th or 5th annual hackathon at the Princeton Public Library. I was a judge along with Brett Bonfield, and Mark Pfeiffer was there as one of the judges from DCA, and Bob McQueen also. And there were some really great apps and teams that were put together. So the winning entry was done by, I think they're high school kids. It was a community calendar website. Still needs a little bit of work, but it was a great start. There was also an app for getting your parking validated at the library using your library card. And again, it was, I think, the beginning of something that could be really great. And there was another website or app that helped you identify ash trees to see if they were infected by the emerald ash borer. And there were some, it was really great. It's just, those events are really great. If you've never been to one, I encourage you to go next year. It's, they have a really just wonderful sort of sense of community, and a lot of people who normally don't get involved come to meetings, but this is a way for them to contribute and think about issues that we have and how they might be able to apply their technical skills. Are there any staff reports? Deanna?
I just wanted to give you an update on the bike share implementation in town. If you recall, council approved a license agreement.
Can you speak more closely into
Sure.
your mic? Yeah, thank you.
Council approved a license agreement with Zagster to expand bike share from the university side of Nassau Street into the town. Originally, they were looking at 4 stations, and due to some issues with one of the locations, they are now currently on track to launch 3 stations with 20 bikes total on October 31st. So the 3 locations that they are proposing are out front here at 400 Witherspoon Street, Heinz Plaza, and Chambers Street. And then there has been a notification put out via Princeton Police Department that the existing bike racks at Heinz Plaza that are located on the Witherspoon side of the plaza will be relocated on Wednesday this week in order to allow for the Zagster bike racks to be installed in that same location. So we are asking anybody, if they do have bikes that are chained up to those bike racks or anything in Heinz Plaza, to please go out and move them. There are quite a few that are in disrepair with flat tires, with rusty chains that look like they have not moved in quite a while. So if they do not relocate the bikes on their own, the police will come through, cut the chains, and Public Works will take them away and wait to see if anybody comes to retrieve those bikes.
Where would they go to retrieve the bikes? To the police department will have them? Public Works will have them? Who will have them? The bikes that you take away from downtown?
Usually they end up at River Road.
At River Road? I wish the police would sweep all the bike racks in town because there's so many bikes around town in that condition with flat tires, broken chains, et cetera. They haven't moved in years, and they're chained not just to the bike racks.
We'll pass that on to
Catch
police.
debris.
Yep. Other reports? Mr. Grosser?
Just reporting back on a successful site visit for National Public Health Accreditation. Last week, we participated in a site visit with some peer site visitors from around the country that came in after a culmination of 3 years of going through the accreditation process, where they checked for conformity with documentation and to visit the Princeton Health Department and check us against other health departments throughout the country. I want to thank Councilwoman Howard, Mayor Lempert, and actually our municipal engineer, Deanna Stockton, who participated in some interviews. I think you guys got the easy end of the interview, but everybody really did a great job. I'm really proud of the health department for coming together and going through the process. So next steps, we should be finding out probably in mid-November at the earliest, and at the latest, we'll find out in February what our accreditation status is.
Great. Any other staff reports? I just had a quick one, actually. I forgot that the 206 bridge project is going on schedule, which is really terrific. And the members of the HPC were out there laying a plaque and a time capsule, too, with some material. And it's been a really wonderful partnership with the state, with the historic preservation folks, and with engineering and police. I mean, I don't think we could have asked for a smoother project given how complicated this was going into it. So I think all the work that was done at the front end has really paid off. So, yep, that doesn't hurt. And so I think it's scheduled to open first week in November still. Is that correct?
Correct. November 3rd is the official date. We'll wait and see if there's any early announcements.
Okay, great. And then just this is more of an internal report, but the website group had a preview of the new site. It looks really great. We're really excited. And as part of that, if everybody wants to look at their own page, we're having the departments look at their page, but as a council member, you have a page. And if you think about not necessarily the specific content, but the categories of content, if there's anything that you'd like to, or that you think should go up there, and everybody would have a similar format. But this is the time to think about that and get your ideas to Jenny and myself, and we can feed that in. So as they're designing those pages, they can get the layout correct. All right. So now we'll move on to ordinance introductions. The first is 2017-57. An ordinance by Princeton pursuant to NJSA 40A 12-21L, authorizing the conveyance for nominal consideration to Habitat for Humanity, Burlington County, in Greater Trenton, Princeton, New Jersey Affiliate Incorporated, Block 15.02, Lot 71, Princeton Municipal Tax Map. And Mr. DeShield, can you give a bit of background on this ordinance?
Sure. As council's aware, we've indicated the property at 3133 Lytle Street was approved for affordable housing. Habitat for Humanities will partner with us. What you have before you is an ordinance that would convey the property, and along with that, an agreement with us and Habitat concerning that they will build 2 units there that would be affordable units and also qualified units for us. One note I do want to make, in the agreement, there are some minor corrections that need to be made. There are some references there that are just incorrect, basic typos that we can make those corrections. But the ordinance itself is fine.
Okay. Ms. Kremler?
Oh, I had a question about the historical architectural elements. Is everything okay with that? Because I thought we might not be in possession of them, or?
My understanding is the group that was involved has possession of them. I still have to work those details out with them, but I believe they still have possession.
Mr. Quinn and then Ms. Butler.
My only question is about the period of time that it calls for 30 years from the date of declaration. I think we typically try with affordable for it to be in perpetuity. Is that
Well, it says at least 30 years, and then both in the Declaration of Covenants and in the Affordable Housing Agreement, it also says that everything has to be in accordance with the UHAC regulations, which is what governs the length, and those do say until released by council.
Thank you.
So it's all built in.
Ms. Butler, do you have a question?
I do have a question, but now I've got to find it in the notes.
Well, you're finding it. I just want to thank Mr. DeShield and Habitat for working successfully on this project. I know when we made the decision, whenever that was, maybe 2 years ago, I think that this was a desire to try to get a win-win and have affordable housing and still have extra room for expansion of the playground. And I think all of us were cautiously optimistic, maybe with the emphasis on cautiously. And to see this come to fruition is really terrific. And it was by no means a guarantee, and I knew it. And I know it's taken a lot of going back to the drawing board to figure out how to actually get 2 units on this property. So thank you for all the work that went into doing that.
Excuse me. My question had to do with the 2 units and the way they're described in this. It almost made it sound like they were 2 freestanding units. They're not separate. They're going to be under one roof. Is that correct? They're back to back, but are they 2 separate dwellings, or is it one? It's still one house. So I thought the language that described it made it sound.
It says detached.
Two detached units. What is?
We add that to the.
It should be attached, 2 attached units.
Okay, it says 2
What page
detached.
are you at? Can you?
Well, I wrote in my notes, page 2A, but I can't find page 2 of what, whether it's.
Are you
Under
referring to
due
the agreement or the
diligence, number 3 in the affordable housing, municipally sponsored affordable housing agreement, I had the same question. It refers to, in the last paragraph on page 2, it says at least 2 for sale, single-family, detached affordable housing units. And
Yeah, it
the
has
good
in-
folks from
We'll just take out the
Habitat
word-
called them a duplex, so,
We'll just take out the word detached.
thank you.
I think it's in another place too. So
Yes,
just do a word
I saw it
search.
repeatedly.
I just saw it
throughout
again
the stuff
under
that
number
calls
2.
them detached.
Just somebody do a word search through there.
And I thought maybe that had to do with the arrangement that we didn't want to have a.
No, it's a mistake.
Okay,
Yeah.
but so there's no condo, or they're not going to be a condo, or.
It's one house divided.
Okay, well then we better look back through all these, because I think that's right. It's more than in here more than once that it calls them 2 detached units.
Any other?
No, I
Questions?
just want to thank Habitat also for doing a great job. It was a tough spot to put a unit, and I know some of our community members probably wanted 1 home, and it's best to have 2 in order to pay for it and be fiscally concerned. So I want to say I take my hat off to doing a great job in putting this there. It's great. There's going to be 2 lovely families that will thank you too.
Great. And I just want to open it up before council votes if anybody wants to speak to this. Yep, Ms. Cray.
Kip Cherry, 24 Dempsey. I'm really thrilled to hear about the back-to-back units. We hadn't heard about that idea before. We're still hoping. We haven't heard really where we are with the historic porch, which is in storage and is in good condition and ready to be reused, so that's still available. The committee that we have has not seen the contract or anything, so we'll look at it before the next opportunity. But the committee will be very excited that we're able to get 2 families onto the property.
Great. And are those the drawings back
I
there?
was going to mention that.
Yeah, you can look
go
on
over
the
there and see
wall
the
there.
actual-
Which committee is that? Is she referring to?
Okay. So is there are there any further comments from council, or does somebody want to make a motion to introduce?
So moved.
That's everybody.
All right, I'll say it was moved by Mr. Miller, seconded by Ms. Crumiller. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 And the public hearing for this ordinance will be on November 13th, 2017. Next is 2017, oh, right. Actually, I see Jim Nahn is in the back waiting for an item at the very end of the agenda. That should be an easy one because it's on consent agenda. It's the number 15. So is there a motion to amend the agenda to move up
Second.
item 15 from the consent agenda? So it's moved by Mr. Miller, seconded by Mr. Liverman. All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we are at Resolution 17346, resolution authorizing a place-to-place transfer of liquor license 1114-33-024-009, Main Street Eats LLC, 301 North Harrison Street to 277 Witherspoon Street. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Ms. Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes. Congratulations.
Could I
Okay.
ask Jim a question? While you're here, Jim, could you tell us about the schedule for the restaurant?
Jim Nahn from Skillman, New Jersey. 2 Sevens is the name of the restaurant, and I hope it'll be opening in early December. Anything else? We're under construction, and things are going along according to schedule.
I heard a rumor it was a Mexican restaurant.
It's going to be, yes, generally speaking. We've had a hard time articulating exactly what it will be, but it'll make sense when you walk in.
Fusion, I think, is the...
They scored very well at the salsa event for Send Hunger Packing, so
Yeah,
there's
so-
already a lot of fans. I think it was a little unfair to have a restaurant win that wasn't even open yet, but it was good publicity.
Yeah, so, anything else? Okay, thanks for doing that, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, next we come to the second ordinance introduction for this evening, 2017-58, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton regulating handicap parking on Chestnut Street and amending the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968, and the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance introduction?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Ms. Crumiller.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Howard. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
I have
sorry,
a question.
I didn't see.
It's not related to this sort of generally. How do we ever know when this is requested by a certain person living on Chestnut Street? And then how do we ever know if people move? Does somebody follow up and these spots are removed? I feel like we've added spots, but they never go away.
I don't know that we do follow up, but we can make a note of that and add it to our
Do we
normal
have
process.
Yeah, do we have a list of how many of these we've granted over the years, and we could go back and, I'm thinking a couple years ago we added one at Washington Oaks, but people move, and
I think it's a good idea to have a periodic review of all of them.
Yes,
It seems like we did take one away one time, so I think we have done it.
But while we're putting them in based on a specific person's request, it's not a reserved space for that person. So if there is anybody else with a valid placard, they can use that space. It just puts one in the vicinity of the need.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman? Mr. Miller? Yes. Ms. Crumiller?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
The ordinance is introduced, and the public hearing will be on November 13th, 2017. Next, we come to our public hearings for this evening. The first is 2017-51, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning conditional uses in residential zoning districts and amending the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968, and the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. And if you remember, this was an ordinance that helps to harmonize those conditional uses specified in both the township and the former township and former borough ordinances, and clean it up a bit. I don't know if there's any questions or comments from council, or if there's a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. It's, oh, actually, wait, we have to hold the public hearing first. Sorry. I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. Is there anybody who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And it's been moved by Mr. Quinn and seconded by Ms. Krummeller. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next is 2017-52, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton revising the definition of floor area to address cathedral ceiling space and amending the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. And this ordinance was a cleanup ordinance when we defined floor area. It wasn't considering the impact on commercial spaces, so that's what this ordinance addresses more clearly.
I'll move it.
It's, well, I want to open up the public hearing, so I'm going to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. And seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and it's been moved by Ms. Krummeller.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Quinn. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. Next is 2017-53, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning land use fees and amending Chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm going to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And
I'll move it.
And it's been moved by Ms.
Second.
Krummeller and seconded by Mr. Quinn. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
The ordinance passes unanimously. And next we come to 2017-54, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton authorizing the acquisition of easements for traffic signal improvements at the intersection of North Harrison Street and Hamilton Avenue from Block 31.03, Lot 60, which is 277 Hawthorne Avenue, Block 31.02, Lot 75.02, which is 88 North Harrison Street, Block 32.07, Lot 177, which is 200 Hamilton Avenue, and Block 32.12, Lot 1, Queenston Commons, for a total amount not to exceed $25,000. Are there any questions from council before we open up the public hearing?
Could
Ms. Butler?
of these four ordinances, this is actually one that I've heard some feedback from residents. I just wonder if maybe Deanna could take a few minutes and just talk about this process. I feel like you maybe were absent when we introduced it, but talk about the process for doing this and the federal grant money and
This ordinance is related to the Safe Routes to School project that we have been working on since 2015 with NJDOT. We have federal funds to replace the traffic signals at this intersection as well as Harrison and Franklin to have the latest pedestrian heads and audible push buttons at each of the intersections. As part of that improvement, they look at the handicapped accessible ramps at each corner of those intersections. And it was found in preliminary design, because this is a federal project, the federal process requires that first you go through preliminary design. In preliminary design, you get a general sense of what the project is going to be. You get a general sense of if you have appropriate right-of-way, if utility services are adequate, and you go through an environmental documentation process. We went through that process with our consultant, Parsons Brinkerhoff. Then we moved into the next stage of final design. And so when you go through final design, at the end of that process, not only does DOT and the Federal Highway Administration look at the final design, but we also have to certify that we have all of the right-of-way that we need, that it's actually in the municipality's possession. And so when the survey came back, we found that the existing sidewalk at the intersection of Harrison and Hamilton is not completely within our possession. Some of that existing sidewalk is actually on private property of each of those 4 property owners. And so what is being proposed is to get a permanent easement over the lands at each of those corners, and sometimes it's just a triangle for a site distance triangle. In other locations, it's a triangle combined with a long rectangular sliver of land to encompass where the existing sidewalk is. Because it is a federal process, a federal funded project, we have to comply with the federal requirements to get the easements. And so part of that process includes negotiations. So because of the size of each of the easements, we had the tax assessor look at the value of what that property would be, because each of the properties, based on comparisons with other properties, that look to be under $10,000 each for the right-of-ways. For the easements, we can go through a process where we do not have to have a formal appraisal done by an outside agency. We can use, the tax assessor can put together comparable recent sales to use as the comparisons for us. And then in that way, he then sets what he estimates the value of each of the easements to be. So we have that put together, and we have reached out to each of the property owners to then go sit down and have a discussion about it. And because the federal process does allow for negotiation, we have a number that we're thinking of, but there's also provisions for rounding of numbers and negotiations. So the number that we've set forth in the ordinance before you does have some level of contingency in there for that negotiation process. And if need be, if through the negotiations, if it's found that we don't have enough set aside for the 4 easements, then we can always come back and ask for additional funding if necessary.
Have you had anybody object any of the 4?
Of these 4?
Yes.
Or in general when we've done acquisitions?
No, these 4.
No, we actually have only sent out an initial letter saying that we found this condition and we would
Okay.
like to meet with you to
Okay.
discuss it.
Excellent.
It's kind of the chicken and the egg
Okay.
question of,
Yep.
do you put the money in place first so you can then go and have the conversations, or do you have the conversations first and then put the money in place? So with legal advice, we went the route of putting the ordinancing the funds first, and we'll have the conversations. I've had conversations by email with 2 of the property owners, and I will be attending, along with representative from Mason Griffin, Queenston Commons board meeting tomorrow night. That's one of the corners that has the need for the easement.
Are there any fences or things of that sort that have to be moved or replaced or something, or?
Not that I'm aware
Okay,
of.
okay.
The properties where we are doing the corners, the fence is already at an angle.
Oh, great.
And so the easements are actually on like the road side of where the fences are.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. All right. Ms. Bell, do you have another question?
I was just going to say, if they need any help negotiating, Jenny's available.
So I'd like to open up the public hearing for this ordinance. Would anybody like to speak to it? All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and
I'll move it.
there's a motion.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Krummeller, seconded by Mr. Liverman. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Liverman?
Yes.
Mr. Miller? Yes. Ms. Crummiller?
Yes.
Ms. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
And the ordinance passes unanimously. So the next steps is that you'll be coming back to council with a report on this, or?
I think the next step we would be coming back for authorization to enter into the easement agreements with each of the property owners. Is that correct, Trishka?
I'll double check, because the ordinance is actually pretty broad in the authority that it's granting, so, but certainly we'll be reporting back to council.
Okay, but as long as it's under this threshold?
As long as it's within the threshold. If it goes over the threshold, then we definitely have to be back.
Okay, okay. Thank you. All right, next we come to resolutions. First resolution is 17-325, resolution requesting the New Jersey Department of Transportation to install pedestrian cross signals at Washington Road, and it's like all pedestrian cross signals at Washington Road and Nassau Street and Witherspoon Street, and Nassau Street and University Place.
Yes.
I would say yes. I
Second.
mean, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Again,
can we just make a motion so it's on the table and
I'm-
we can discuss?
Okay. I'm make a motion.
Okay, so it's moved by Mr. Liverman and
And I just-
seconded by Ms. Howard, I assume.
Second, yes. I just, wondered if you'd had any conversations with the state since the tragic accident. And
I called them the next morning and just expressed that this has been something we've been asking for a
Right.
while, this all pedestrian cross signal, and that they were interested in seeing a copy of the police report. So I think that's probably going to be done sometime this week or next week, and the chief knows, and so we'll get that to them.
thank you for doing that. Yeah.
And I think the last time they looked at it, they rejected that possibility, but they didn't say absolutely no, they wouldn't look at it again. So I think this resolution will help. And I've certainly, I'm sure everybody here, I've been hearing from a lot of concerned members of the public. I do want to just make it clear for anybody who's listening that this signal is not under the municipality's control, because Nassau Street's a state road, a state highway. So it's ultimately under the jurisdiction of the Department of Transportation, and they make the decision. But this is why we have the resolution, and we're trying to appeal to them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was surprised to see the University Place in Nassau on here as well. I know that in the past we had talked about the Witherspoon and Nassau, but it just struck me as a little funny. The University Place, is a scramble really
There is
necessary?
concern about the traffic volumes that are turning left from University Place on to 27 going towards 206. That left turning movement coincides with the pedestrian movement. So there's an inherent potential conflict between the pedestrians and the left turning vehicles. It's something that we had discussed in traffic safety that we would like to have DOT investigate and study.
Okay. The other two are so critical. I hope we don't diminish our chances by throwing everything in there, but I support it, certainly.
Well, maybe they can give us 2/3 of what we want.
It's always good to ask for more, so.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution passes unanimously. Next is 17-326, resolution authorizing the extension of the existing contract with Central Jersey Waste and Recycling Incorporated for solid and bulky waste collection for 1 year, 2018, in an amount not to exceed $414,666. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Liverman, seconded by Mr. Miller. Are there any questions or comments on this?
Why is this a one-year contract? I thought we typically did these in threes.
think this is an extension of the,
Oh, this is,
an extension of the, I think we had a 3-year
Existing.
contract, and then we have the,
The initial
this is the
contract was
option.
for 2 years. Last year, you extended it for 1 year, doing another one, and then we'll have the opportunity to do the third one for the 5th year of the contract next year. We've just been going year by year with them so that if they create a problem or have an issue, it's easier for us to get out of the contract.
one thing that I would recommend not to act on tonight, obviously, but something for council to think about for next year is this idea of switching to a whole different model, which is a pay-as-you-throw. It's been done in other communities. I know it's been a pet project of Ms. Crumiller's, but this is, it takes about a year to get all the education in place and make sure people know what the system is going to be. So I think next year might be something, as we think about priorities and if this is something we want to take on, next year would be an opportunity to talk about it, and then we could put it in place for the final, extend it for a final year, do education that year, and then be ready. I think if we don't do it next year, then we're talking about going into another probably 3-year, 5-year contract, and it's hard to switch the way we do it. So we do have a window of opportunity here, and I would just encourage everybody to think about it as we think about goals, if this is something we want to take on. I think it's shown that it can have an impact on.
So are we going to reduce taxes and then we pay for the? How does that-
I don't know if I can tell you all the details, but
I'm just wondering how that
essentially,
works.
I think that you can, hopefully you'd have some sort of reduction in taxes, and you'd still have some guaranteed trash pickup.
That's what I'm wondering, 'cause
But
we're still
that,
paying
you'd have, it's
both.
not like you go down to no trash pickup, it's that you'd be allowed to have some minimal amount, and then if you want to go above that, you'd have to pay extra. And it obviously, if you're throwing out recycling, or if you're not in the curbside compost program, and you're throwing out food scraps, and you're going to be paying for that. Right now, we pay for it as a community, but it's a way to help people take the stuff that's not trash out of the trash stream and give a financial incentive for it.
Okay.
But anyway, that can be discussed more later. I just wanted to plant the seed.
right.
can I?
So I'll call the question.
Well, I just want to ask Bob Huff one more question. As we renew this contract, is there an opportunity to talk with them about the incredible amount of garbage liquid, is there a name for that, that spews onto our streets when they pick up?
We can talk to them, and we can talk to all the other vendors that collect, including ourselves, throughout the municipality. Yes.
Especially on Harrison Street, there's a white line in the middle going all the way up. Yes, that's from trash. That was a trash truck. I know.
It's
Because
garbage juice.
Because I think what people, well, a lot of times people would throw, I think, paint in garbage cans, and the paint drips from the truck, and
Yeah.
it leaks into the
It's
sun.
awful. Some days Witherspoon Street, after they've been through there, just, it's revolting.
I don't know if you'll accept public comment.
Sure.
But I'm actually commenting as a member of the planning board, the master plan subcommittee. In the re-exam meeting that we had a week and a half ago, one of the items that was suggested as an edit to the re-examination report was the suggestion that we should be looking at pricing strategies to optimize waste disposal. It did not make it into the final draft, and I haven't had a chance to follow up with Lee yet to find out why it didn't, but if there's a way to get some support from council in terms of getting that back into the re-examination report, it seems very apt to the kind of pay-as-you-throw strategy you're talking about.
Okay, thanks, David.
May I get his name, please?
David Cohen, I knew you were wondering. You're David Cohen.
Sorry about
Yeah.
Get used
Thank
to it.
you.
Yeah, get used to it. All right. Are there any other comments before we take a vote on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, resolution passes unanimously. Next, we come to 17-327, resolution authorizing a contract award to Edward H. Cray in the not-to-exceed amount of $95,150 for traffic signal maintenance and construction services for a 14-month term ending on December 31st, 2018.
I'll move it.
It's moved by
Second.
Ms. Krummeller, seconded by Mr. Quinn. Any questions about this? This was the taking over the
Mercer
responsibility of
County.
this from the county.
I have a question about this one. Is this a possible candidate for shared services with other municipalities?
Yes, it definitely is, and with the university as well.
And who's going to follow up with that?
Bernie's question was whether this was a candidate for shared services agreement with other Mercer County municipalities, and it is. We have a couple of methods of how to follow up on this, Bernie. One with the university, we do have a meeting scheduled in November to speak with them about traffic signals and some other infrastructure type related issues. I also have been speaking with a traffic engineer that we've been working with who would be willing to assist us in reaching out to the other municipalities. Otherwise, it's an added workload to our already busy workload in engineering. And we can do it definitely, but it does require some legwork between all of the various municipalities to follow up on a shared service agreement of that type. But the contract that you're awarding does not preclude including additional signals if we do in fact get a shared service agreement in place.
Thank you.
Well, Mark, how are we, I guess this will be in the 2018 budget, because this is an expense we didn't previously have, correct? I mean, this is a lot of money.
I believe some of that is, if I'm not correct, in our budget. The additional expense we'd have to find money for in the 18 budget.
Right, it's coming out of a miscellaneous infrastructure account that engineering keeps for things that happen to pop up during a budget cycle. So we do have a somewhat undesignated account that we can use. It just means that if we needed it for something else, the money wouldn't be there.
And my understanding too is that this was money that we're just changing the contractor essentially. We used to use a contractor through Mercer County, and there was money in the budget for unforeseen issues with the traffic signals. Mercer County canceled that, so now we're on our own. So it's still the same amount.
We were paying Mercer County.
We were paying, just like we pay for our recycling. Even though it looks like it's Mercer County providing it, they're providing it for a fee.
Yeah, okay.
So,
That kind of providing it.
yeah. All right. I think this has already been moved and seconded. Is all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 17-328, resolution approving a contract for extraordinary and unspecifiable services to White Buffalo Incorporated for specialized gear management services in an amount not to exceed $120,000 and for distance sampling in an amount not to exceed $11,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Ms. Krummeller, and I know that the extraordinary and unspecifiable services is always an alarming turn of phrase, but that's courtey of our attorney who says we have to
And it's
phrase
sort of-
it that
and
way.
It's a
It's
term
apt
of art
here.
under the local public contracts law.
Okay.
Well, what does it mean? I mean, in
It's
this case.
basically.
It's how you don't go out to bid, right? You identify somebody.
Yeah, it's a type of no bid contract. It's not, it doesn't fall under the category of professional services contracts. That's only with the licensed professions. But it is the type of service that you really can't quantify and reduce to uniform specifications. There's a certain qualitative evaluation that has to take place.
And I'll just comment that we've been periodically updating council and the public on the plan for the deer management, the the deer hunt this winter, and the Animal Control Advisory Committee did meet and approve the plan. So this is effectuating the plan that the advisory committee approved.
Great.
And at your meeting on November 13th, you'll have the actual community-based deer management plan application on the agenda for endorsement.
Okay, terrific. All in favor of this resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is 17-329, resolution authorizing the purchase of affordable housing unit 133 Brick House Road in the amount of $86,299. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Ms. Krummeller, seconded by Mr. Liverman. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 17-330, resolution authorizing the purchase of municipal building and employee safety and security equipment and installation services from various vendors in the amount of $76,705. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Ms. Krummeller. Any
Wait,
comments or questions?
Yeah,
Ms.
could we
Butler?
get an explanation on this? What is the stuff? I didn't actually, okay, that carefully.
This is a resolution to authorize improvements, in particular, improvements that would provide keyless access to all of the employee areas throughout the municipal buildings. Right now, a number of our departments are actually, there are no locks that will prevent someone from going into those areas. This will make sure that they're all key accessed to get in or to get out of those buildings. You could provide more details.
One area in particular is the finance department. They need additional security. Unfortunately, all the systems don't necessarily talk to each other between this building and the old borough building. And so we need to do some work with regard to that. And we also are going to have this so that it's all controlled through police dispatch, so that if there ever was an incident in any of the buildings, dispatch will be able to lock down a building, lock down areas, which cannot be done right now. So Nick, myself, Bob Gregory, Bob McQueen, we've all worked on this together along with Mark to put together this plan, and which will make all of our facilities much more secure than they currently are.
Whose idea was this? I mean, what was sort of the genesis? Was this recommended by some sort of municipal best practices, or was there some threat, or did you just?
We've not had any threats. It's been something that we probably started discussing about a year and a half ago, when obviously in the climate we live in, certain things were happening. We've had concerns raised by many of our employees concerning the security of these buildings, both during the day and at night. So we looked into it, spent quite a bit of time kicking around a couple ideas. I know Bob McQueen's taken the lead on some of this, looked at some of the things the schools do, that public schools do as far as these situations, and thought that this was the best plan, the best thing we can do for the value of the money.
In addition, as part of some of the training I received as a member of our joint insurance fund, that's one of the things that they have been looking at, some trainings in terms of safety and security of all of our buildings, just based on the climate that we currently have. And that's one of the recommendations. In addition, just through walking through the buildings, I've also noticed where we have some, what I'll call opportunities for some real issues, particularly in our finance area, that we need to correct.
Bulletproof glass up here.
Bob, does this include the rec department and other functions that are housed in the rec building?
The rec and IT building is part of this also, along with Monument Hall and Witherspoon. And in the future, we've looked at it as a system that potentially could be expanded to include a lot of the satellites, like John Street, where the DPW staff is, the parking garage, where those folks are, to put them on it. So it is a system that we could expand, but right now the guts is these two main campuses.
Thank you.
And it is, again, budget-wise, was this part, I don't recall this being discussed in the 17 budget. Is it 17 or 18 or?
There was actually money in the previous capital budget for improvements to the security system for the doors. In addition, there is also capital funds that we do generally for the buildings, for each one of the buildings. So a combination of those two funds were used for this project.
Okay, thank you.
So is this going to improve the locks? Because that one, the lock for that door gets stuck, it seems like, when it's rainy.
There are door issues right now with this door and the door at the end of the hallway that both staff and the door people are looking into. Part of it is a hardware issue with the doors. So we're trying to get it so that we're not replacing the entire door, which would be expensive.
Okay.
But we are working on it and we're aware of it. And it's 2 doors right now.
Okay.
It's a lot of usage.
Yeah. All in favor of this resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next is
Thank
17.
you.
Thanks, Bob. 331. Resolution endorsing a request to the New Jersey Department of Transportation to support a speed limit reduction on Mercer Road between the former borough municipal boundary near Lovers Lane and Quaker Road from 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Ms. Howard. Any questions or discussion on this?
I have a question for you, Jenny. This was approved by the Traffic and Transportation?
Yes.
Or whichever one of those.
Traffic Safety Committee,
committees.
yes.
Sorry. And why only to Quaker Bridge when we've had incidents beyond Quaker Bridge out to Province Line?
Yeah, I think we're hoping it's a 2-step process, and that doing it this way, it's more likely that we'll get approval from the county. Is that?
Correct. It's from the state. It's going to be a 2-stage process. If you look at the development adjacent to each of those sections of roadway, so the piece between Quaker and Lovers Lane is it's developed. It's what's designated as like a suburban residential. It differs from, say, the portion that was in the former borough because you do not have as much frontage of residential buildings. But then if you move south to that next section from Quaker towards the southern boundary, it's less suburban, maybe more tending to a rural development. And you also don't have a lot of the other features like curvature, slopes, schools, state parks within that stretch. And so what we wanted to do is try to get the section from Quaker to Lovers reduced as much as we possibly can. And we felt that that southern section might hamper that goal, just because of the change in the character of the roadway. So what we're looking at doing as a second phase for that southern section is coming in for a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, if possible. And I've had preliminary discussions with Lawrence to see if they may consider that then for their portion between Bristol-Myers Squibb and their northern boundary line. So
Right.
we are looking at trying to address the whole area.
Oh, good. But I see this doesn't, like using the 85% rule, this does not meet that criteria that we've used formerly when other people have requested consideration of a reduction of speed limit on their roads, so.
Well, we always refer back to the 85th percentile. We then have to look at what other opportunities are there to ask for reductions. And in this case, we have quite a few with the adjacent development. In other locations, there may not be enough features that warrant a reduction below the 85th percentile.
I mean, I certainly support this, and I hope we can get the other people would be wise to slow down on the other part too, for all the obvious reasons.
And just a quick question, and then what's the time frame? It sits at the state, or what might happen?
We send it off to the state, and I think they have 90 days to respond back. If they don't respond back, then we can move ahead and make the ordinance change.
Great.
Thank you.
If they do respond back, then we'll, hopefully it's in an affirmative response and we can still move ahead.
Terrific. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes unanimously. Next, we come to the consent
I
agenda.
make a motion that we accept the consent agenda, noting that we already voted for 15 on the consent agenda. That we already voted for 15.
And then, did you want number 4 removed? And we're also removing number 4.
Yes, please.
With the removal of number 4.
And that's just going to come back to us. It needed a little bit more work. All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
So it's been moved by Mr. Liverman and seconded by Mr. Miller. And just to remind everybody, we're removing item number 4, and we've already voted on item number 15. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, do you want to say why?
Well, yes, I would have asked to have the bills and claims removed, but Lance jumped the gun. I have, the legal bills are on the,
I'll be willing to.
well, that's all right, it's passed,
Okay.
but thank you. I also would have asked about the charter school, but again, passed. I have an issue with the legal bills. I've had an ongoing conversation with Heather and Mark. I think at this point I will just write a memo about my concerns about the form of the billings, the block billing that happens, and in spite of repeated requests, I think we have a situation in which the current bills don't accurately reflect some things that occurred, and so I'll just write a memo separately. I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. No. I never got anything. No. Oops.